us where they did really well in language, but it'll also show us points where it's weak, and where we're weak in language. So rather than have to go, how do we fix this? Every time we run a test, we take a look at those scores, and it gives us a very quick picture of how we're doing as a school and how our students are performing and how they're learning as we go along. That is a really good test. We use it for reading, language, and math. They did not used to use that test. They used to use a different one, but since we started using this one, the parents have been really happy because, number one, the results are easy to understand. They're written in a language that parents can understand. The results from the previous test that they used was very difficult to understand what the results actually meant. We do use another test for the smaller kids. And how come we're going backwards? Well, maybe. And that's more about the math test again. The map with the math breaks it down. And it also compares all the students so we can see if it's just one student that's struggling, whether the whole school is struggling, or if it's one particular grade group that seems to be struggling in an area, but everybody above and below them went through the same curriculum just fine. So one of the other tests we use is the PSAT test in grades 9 through 11. It's a mandatory test for our kids. Neither one of these tests affects the student's grade, and it doesn't have anything to do with whether they graduate in grade 12. These are just so we can see how the kids are doing and show the parents how their kids are doing. And if there's an area that we need to do extra work on, we can do that for each individual student. The PSAT test is the test just before the SAT test, which most people have heard at. The SAT is a test that most North American universities require for a student to be admitted to their university. The PSAT test is from the same company, and it's a very similar test. And we give it so that when students hit grade 12, they're used to taking that type of test. They have a general idea of what the questions might cover. And it also is good because, for example, in this case, if this was one of our students, the results here would say that in critical reading, out of all the people all over the world that took the test, 75% of the students scored lower than this person. Okay? In mathematics, 70% of the people all over the world scored lower than this person did. And then again, in writing skills, 78% of the people all over the world that took the test scored lower. What this does is it allows students to see, wow, I'm really good in something, so I don't need to spend a lot of time studying. But then they might look at this and go, wow, you know, that is a good score, by the way, but in the whole picture, they might look at that and go, wow, I really need to work on math, because I really want to get my math score up here where these other ones are. And so that basically gives the students 3 years worth of guidance in high school so that it doesn't come as a surprise at grade 12 if they don't know math. We've been helping them along, and the test results show that they needed to do that. A test that we use in the preschool and the kindergarten is something called the CPA Test. It was actually created in Stanford, as I recall. It was a great test, and the people at the Northwest Evaluation Association essentially bought it from them because they liked it so much. It's a really nice test. The MAP test, when you go in and take it like so many other tests, you either get it right or you get it wrong. And if you get it wrong, well, too bad. Move on to the next question. With this one, it's a computerized test, but if the student doesn't get it right, they'll ask them the same question again, but they'll word it differently, a way that maybe they'll understand the question better. Sometimes they'll give them a little hint, because if you get a little hint, then you go, oh yeah, I remember that. And then the students, it helps show if the students really understand it, or whether, you know, some people when they have to take a test, they go, ooh, I have to take a test. Well, the little hints that they give help go, oh yeah, okay, this is easy, I remember this. So this has been a really good test. This is one of the reports it gives us. And what it does is it takes students from all over the world and it assesses where students of that particular age should be based on the entire world population. For this student, you can't really read those, but in literacy, this student was at the place they needed to be in these two categories, and a little bit below there. The same thing here. Green means they're where they need to be. Yellow means they're not quite there. If it was red, it would mean there's a real problem. We have a lot of our students who are above the expectation. That comes through in a lot of different ways. We just had 2 students go back to Scotland, where they are originally from, and when they got back there, the schools wanted to bump them up another grade from where they were supposed to be, because after leaving our school, they were about a year or a year and a half ahead where they were in their home country. These type of tests let us know how we're doing. This one also comes with instructions for parents. For example, if a student's score was that, they have a database of activities that you can do at home with your children. Easy to do activities, but statistically, through data and research, if your student was scoring low and you did the activities that we send home to help support your student, all the data suggests that in a very short time, your student will be up to at least the expected level. The parents at our school have found that to be very valuable. Everybody wants to be part of their child's education, to help them be the best that they can, and these activities that we send home, the parents have thought was just great. So we're real happy with this particular test as well. We are in the process, which I think, if I understand the Korean government, something that all the Korean schools are going to have to eventually do anyways. We're switching all our curriculum over to a digital format, as in no more books to carry around. There is a mandate somewhere that I read that the Korean government put out that said all the Korean schools have to do that, but I don't remember what the time frame was. We've already started down that journey. Our reading, writing, and language art programs are all digital and online. We do have naturally some handbooks that the students write on, but other than that, all their books are digital. Some parents were a little reluctant because if you're used to always having books, to have your student come home and never have a book can be scary for some parents. Now that they've seen how the program works, they're going, wow, this is great. Why didn't you do this before? Little Johnny used to always tell me he forgot his book, and even if he leaves his computer at school, we can still get to all his homework, we can still get his books. So basically it's eliminated, you know, as long as you have more than one computer in your home, it's eliminated the excuse of, well, I didn't bring it home from school because, well, it's not at school, it's on the internet, all you have to do is get on it. This has went really well, the teachers are happy with it, the kids love it, the parents are excited. One of the features of this program is the company that we buy this from has additional books that you can buy. So if your child has a love for reading, you can buy them online, and they list it by level. So it'll give you books that your child should be able to read. So there's no guesswork involved, only guessing what book they might like better than another. But as far as can your child read that book, the answer would be yes, and it might be a little challenging depending on which one you got, but they should be able to read it. What do we do in our classrooms? Well, we have an American curriculum, but we also do a lot of project work, a lot of hands-on things. This is one example of a class project that the students had to do in the science class. It also involved some engineering as well. They had to take an egg, an egg, crack it, fry it. Well, they took an unboiled egg and they had to create something to drop the egg 3 floors, have it hit the ground, and still be in one piece after it had hit. And this is it falling down the 3 stories, just in case you didn't believe me. And there it hits the ground, and there's Mr. King, and as you can see, the egg is still in one piece. Now, some people look at that and go, well, yeah, that looks like a lot of fun, but what does that have to do with education? Well, that's one of the things about the American curriculum, is it involves developing what we call problem-solving skills. Knowledge is a great thing, but if you don't know how to use it, it's not really much good. In their science class, they had to use problem-solving skills. How do you drop an egg for 3 stories and still have it be in one piece at the bottom? So they had to solve that problem. And as I recall, everybody that did that succeeded except for one group. One group did get a crack out of it, but our students did real well. It took a lot of problem-solving skills to be able to do that. Middle school, in our science class, in this case, what you see in this box is a pig heart from a pig. And what our students did, both at the middle school level and the elementary school, they, what we call, dissected the heart. Rather than just look at it, we cut it open. Each heart has valves in it. We looked at those. And we do a lot of that type of thing in our curriculum. It involves getting your hands on stuff. And as you can see, he certainly got his hands on it. We had some kids that thought it would be fun to try to stick their fingers through the heart valves and see what those felt like. So this type of an education allows students to, be inquisitive, How many of you would have gotten up this morning and thought, wow, I wonder what it would be like to stick my finger inside a pig heart? Not too many, okay? So when we give them projects like this and experiments for science, we try to stimulate their imagination so that they start going, well, what if we do this? What if we do this? What happens if this works? Or looking at something and going, wow, what makes that work? And so a lot of our curriculum is around that, trying to figure things out. Besides the normal academic stuff of math, reading, language, spelling, science, social studies, we do a lot of other activities at our school. This is just one example. Every year we have our annual sports day, and it goes from preschool right through the grade 12. Every year the students plan it. It's another one of those challenges that we give the students. They actually have to plan out what we do every year for the sports day. And the older students actually have to run the whole thing and make it work. Naturally, we adults have to give them some assistance along the way. But most of the things that they do, they thought of, they developed. They had to develop a time schedule so that the whole day was filled with activities. That might not sound like much until you actually have to do it. Trying to fill up an entire day with activities for kids that range from preschool and kindergarten all the way through grade 12 isn't really the easiest thing to do. So that's another challenge that our students have to problem solve and schedule and think, well, what if we do this? And, well, if we do something for the kindergartners, will the 12th graders like it? No, probably not. So again, you see the problems that they have to solve when they do these type of things. Every year we have our annual fall festival is what we call it. We call it that to camouflage it as our Halloween celebration, for those of you that are familiar with the tradition of Halloween. Some people don't really care for Halloween, but they like the fall festival. So we try to make everybody as happy as we can. So we do Halloween type stuff for the fall festival. If you know where our school presently is, it's next to GIST. It's on the other side of the Science Museum. There is a school next to ours. I can't say it in Korean. Thank you. That's the name of the school next to us. When we have festivals, a lot of times we will invite their students to come over and participate. As you can see here, we had quite a few come over for the annual fall festival. And the kids and the staff. This guy right here is in the room, by the way, just in case you haven't noticed. And again, those are all activities that the students have to plan. They have to be able to talk. They have to be able to communicate. That might not seem like a lot, but if you want to work at a factory or if you work for a big company, you need to learn how to communicate with people. That's not something people generally do naturally. It's a thing that you learn to do. So by having our students organize all these things and run all these things and plan them and think them through, it helps them so when they graduate, they've already developed a lot of the what we'll call non-academic skills that you really need if you're going to be successful out in the big world. There's some more pictures from the Fall Festival. As you can see, everybody gets excited about that. Our American Thanksgiving celebration. Thanksgiving is the only American holiday that we celebrate at the school. And if you're not from America, that might not make sense, but Thanksgiving in America is a really special holiday. It's kind of like Chuseok, where you guys get together with all your family. In America, families get together for Thanksgiving. And so that's the one holiday that we do. The parents actually do all this. The parents buy all the food, they get it prepared, they set up the tables. The school donates turkeys, which the teachers, cook, and usually the school will donate some pumpkin pies and other type of pies that might not normally be found in Korea, that if you were in America you would have at a Thanksgiving dinner. And as you can see, no one's walking around without getting enough food. One year we did open it up to everybody in Kwangju, and we had quite a crowd, but as you can imagine, that's also very expensive, and it's also very difficult to determine how many people will actually show up. You could have 1,000 people show up, or you could have 300 people show up, and if 300 show up and you had enough food for 1,000, well, what do you do with the rest of the food? But if you had enough food for 500 people and 1,000 people show up, how are you going to feed the other 500? So we went back to just having it within the KFS community. People that are active with our school are invited to this activity. And everybody has a really good time, and we all usually get a little bit fatter after that. One of the things we do, even at the young level, is, again, hands-on activities. In this case, how many of you ever made a tie-dyed t-shirt, or maybe did tie-dye pants I've seen? That's what these kids are doing here, which doesn't sound like much, but when you see all that goes into it, they have to fold their t-shirts the right way, or it just turns out as just a blob is what it turns out like. They have to figure out what colors go together. There's just a lot of different things that go on in this project, and as you can see, the kids are getting their hands dirty. Middle school, this was another thing that we did. It was a science, I don't remember if that one was a project or a contest.
It's like an activity period.
Okay, an activity. Basically, they were given a bunch of spaghetti noodles and said, here, you have to build a bridge. And whoever's bridge can hold the most weight wins a bunch of pizzas. And we had, these are just a couple of the bridges that were built. What they did was they built the bridges, we stuck them between two tables, there was a rope that goes around it, and as you can see here, we kept adding more water until it finally went whoop, like that. And whoever's held the most water, obviously that's the most weight as well, won the pizza prize. Again, why would you have somebody make a bridge out of spaghetti? Well, spaghetti's cheap for starters. But it's back to that problem-solving skills. You can see here there's just two versions. We had some kids, well here's another one. We had some kids that thought that if you just put enough spaghetti noodles right on top of each other and did that, that would be the strongest bridge. As it turned out, that wasn't the case. That was one of the weaker bridges. So again, it goes back to thinking, problem-solving skills. What if? What if we do this? What happens if we do this? And in the case here, because we're using spaghetti noodles, the run-up to this, they changed their designs quite frequently. They'd build a bridge, and they could tell right away it just wasn't going to hold anything. And since it's a spaghetti noodle, you just throw it away and start again. You can do that with spaghetti noodles. So it's another example where our kids get hand-on experience. They have to think, they have to solve problems, and they have to plan. That works out really well with our academics because it forces the kids to see how all those things that we're trying to get them to learn actually have some place out in the real world. Here, we've got geometry. We've got geometry there. Most kids, when they take geometry or algebra, they go, oh, I'll never use this. Well, here's an example. If you're going to be an engineer, whether you're engineering bridges for the Korean government or a building, you need to understand how all that works and how it all applies. It's activities like this that allow our students at a very young age to start to see how the things they're learning in school will apply when they're adults trying to get jobs. Besides all of that, one of the things we like to do at our school is we like to try to have fun. Because, well, you know, if you're not having fun, it gets boring. And if you're bored, you're not as interested. If you're not as interested, you're not learning everything that you probably need to know. This is one way we do that. We were one of the founding members of the SCAC, or the South Korean Activities Conference. It does two things. United Nations competitions. And here's a picture of that. We've got 6 or 7 other schools that come from all over Korea to our school. And basically it operates like a real small United Nations. Each year they're given problems that they have to solve. Each one of them represents a particular country in the world. And even if they don't agree with that particular country, they still have to represent the views, the culture, and the feelings that people from that country would have. So a bunch of things go on here. It makes our students more culturally aware, particularly if they get a country that they don't agree with their beliefs or what they do politically. It forces them to research it and try to find out why they think that way, and then actually try to defend it, even though it's not something they would normally do. We also host the Spelling Bee. Again, the same group of schools come in, and it's in basically 2 divisions. We separate the elementary from the middle school. If students win at our spelling bee, they are then eligible to go up to the regional up in Seoul and compete in that spelling bee. And then if they win that, then there's another one after that, usually somewhere in East Asia. And then if they actually won that, there's one more for the entire world, and that changes location so often that I have no idea where that would be. But as you can see, we've got our kids up there and kids from Busan, Daeju, quite a few. We also participate in volleyball, which our kids did real well in this year. We have a boys and a girls team. We also go down all the way to the elementary school with these activities. But since we're such a small school, we can't always field a team for the little kids. If they don't want to play, well, we're not going to force them to play. But at the high school level, we can usually field all the teams. We also do basketball. Here's our fine middle school team. They actually won the SCAT tournament last year and brought home the trophy. We also participate in soccer. Some parents have asked me, why do we do this, because a lot of schools don't. Well, it goes back to problem-solving skills. If you're in a sports competition, it has certain rules and both sides have the same goal. You have to figure out how to be smarter than the other team, which means you have to be able to solve problems. All these activities build on what we're doing in the classroom. It gives the students real-life examples of how to apply the information that they've learned in a real-life setting. Again, for example, I always used to tell people that I never really used the math I got in high school. And it didn't ever dawn on me that, well, actually, the game of soccer has a lot of math in it, particularly geometry. You have to understand angles. There's physics involved in this, velocity. There's science involved in this. Most sports have a lot of different things involved in it, and it gives our students an opportunity so that they can use those. We also have kids that some of you might be familiar with the Kwangju Foreign Language Network. Our students, every year they have a debating championship on the radio. Our students participate in that as well. And again, it pits them against students that they've never met before, and it goes back to thinking skills. You have to think fast. If you're going to debate someone, you need to come up with better information. You need to be able to think faster than they can. You need to be able to articulate or say what it is that you're trying to get across. It's activities like this, again, that go hand in hand with our in-classroom activities. It gives them a chance to use the skills that we're teaching them in the classroom. One of the things we do is we try to teach what we call global citizenship. While each of us are citizens of whatever country that we've been born from, we try to look at the whole world. We have a teacher who happened to be in the Philippines when they had their disaster when the hurricane hit. And our students got involved in some of the global relief efforts to try to help the Philippines get back up on their feet. And our students did a lot of different things. In this case, we had students standing out, actually somewhere around here, I think, and for 1,000 won, she'd give you a hug. Seems a little funny, but they raised just a lot of money giving out hugs the night they went out. They did that one night. And we heard from the folks in the Philippines, and they were very grateful for the support we were able to give to help them get back on their feet again. If you've never been there, the Kwangju Traditional Cultural Center is an exciting place to go. Our students have gone there, and what happens there is the students are taught from a Korean cultural standpoint how to create these things that maybe their grandparents did, how to make, well, in this case, bowls, but there's a variety of things that you look around that are really made by factories now, that many, many years ago, if you wanted to have a big jug, someone in your family had to know how to make one. And this is an example of trying to embrace the old and the new. Just because something's new doesn't necessarily mean it's better. Just because you can get a jar at a factory doesn't make it a better jar. What if the factory closes? Where do you get your jars from then? Well, if you know how to make one, problem solved. So, the students have found this to be fascinating, really, to get hands-on experience, to physically learn how to use a spinning wheel, how to make a vase, how to make a jar. Because if you don't ever really think about it, you never really think about it. It's like, it's not that easy to make a jar, but if you've never tried, it never dawns on you how much skill is actually required to do that. And again, there are things involved in creating that on a spinning wheel that go back to things we've taught them in the classroom. So it's just another way where we can embrace the culture but still use information that we're using in the classroom. Those are some of the things that we do at KFS. These are some of our kids and some of our staff. Most of them look pretty happy. Where do our teachers come from? Well, we've got teachers from China, South Africa, New Zealand, United States, Korea, Canada, the Philippines. Next year we'll be adding the UK as well. So they're from all over the place. Can we teach you how to put out fires? Probably not. They came and gave us some training and sort of patted us on the back and said, just make sure you call before you get the hoses out. But we can teach students all the core subjects. We have elective courses where students can take courses. There's a set number they have to take, and then they can pick the rest of whatever either they find really interesting or something they are good at, or maybe it's something they don't know anything about but they'd like to start learning about it. The elective courses gives them the ability to do that. Again, besides teaching the academics, we try to help our students learn how to be better citizens. You can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't want to help people around you, you don't want to help make the world a better place, you don't want to make things that are useful for everyone, is your knowledge really that helpful? Well, maybe to you, but not to anybody else. So we try to teach the kids not only to be better citizens here in Korea, but globally as well. We encourage our students to do physical activities. We also have a very good music and art program at our school. We were fortunate, Mr. Santos, our music director, came today. And he's just doing a marvelous job. He's exposing children to all sorts of different types of music, all sorts of different sort of instruments. We do have a full set of Korean drums, unfortunately. Nobody at our school really knows how to play them traditionally. So we're working on that, but we try to give kids exposure to a lot of different things. If it truly is a global world, we need to be able to look at other cultures and appreciate what they have to offer. Again, we encourage our students to be leaders, both in the classroom and with all these activities and projects that we do. We try to encourage them to be problem solvers, because if you can't solve a problem, well, you're in trouble. Or someone else will solve it and they'll make lots of money and you'll be going back going, oh man, I wished I solved that problem. And we try to give them the tools necessary so they can do all of those things. Where would we like to be in the future? Well, we'd like to have a larger student and a larger stable student population. Like I mentioned at the beginning, because of the requirements of the government, our enrollment goes up and down and up and down, and we don't really know from year to year how many kids that we're going to have. Think of a big company like Hyundai. If they normally sold, say, 2 million cars every year, and then they suddenly only sold 500,000, well, there'd be a problem. Or if they needed to sell 4 million, but they only usually made 2 million, again, they have a problem. That's a problem we have because the enrollment keeps on going all over the place. It makes it difficult for us to offer more courses, to buy additional resources. So that's something we're striving to do, is to get more kids in the school. Certainly a larger student population would make it possible for us to offer more programs and more courses. We have a lot of things that we would really like to be able to do, but we just don't have the money to do it because we have so few students. We'd also like to build partnerships with more community businesses and organizations. It helps the students get a more real-world experience. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, the big school next to ours, GIC, Kwangju Institute of Science and Technology, we have a fairly good relationship with them. We have 2 of their professors that come and visit our school frequently. They have, because, well, they're the Science Institute, they have some laboratories over there that we will never ever have. We'll never even consider having some of the equipment that they have. But because we've got a relationship with them, the professors will take our students into their big university labs and allow our students to experience things that most high school students are never going to experience because most high schools can't get their hands on the equipment that they have at GIST. So that's one example. We have kids that work with some of the orphanages here in Kwangju. That doesn't seem like much, but if you came from a really wealthy family and you never really experienced poverty, or you never really saw someone that really is needy, you really wouldn't think about trying to solve their problems. But our kids that work at the orphanage, well, number one, they get to see, there's no doubt these kids need some help. They're in an orphanage, okay? And so it makes them look at the world differently. And so that's another reason why we like to have those. At some point in time, I would like to be able to set up a program with some of the big companies here in Kwangju. I think it would be great if I could get together with somebody from Handson or Kia or Hyundai and have some sort of a program where maybe our kids went there once or twice a week and, I don't know, followed somebody to see what they did, or maybe if there was a way for them to get some hands-on experience so they could go, wow, yeah, this is, I'd like to do something like this. Or, wow, I see a problem here, and start the wheels going, wow, if I was the engineer, I could fix this and make this 100 times better. It's those kind of experiences that make our students perform better than a lot of other kids around the world. So we'd like to be able to offer some adult education courses. Right now, because we're such a small school, our teachers that we have on staff are busy all the time. We really don't have a lot of free time or extra time to do extra things. It might not sound like that much work to offer an adult education program, but there's a lot of planning that goes involved in that. There's a lot of resources that we would have to gather, and that all takes time. And so that's something we'd like to do, but we're just not able to do that yet. And we'd like to have a closer relationship with the city of Kwangju. I think that would be most beneficial. I think there's a lot of things that our school and our kids can do for the city of Kwangju. And I know for a fact that there's a lot of things that the city of Kwangju has to offer that if we could connect with them would be very, very valuable for our students. And so I've been working on trying to get some of those connections together so that we can start doing some of those things. And that is everything.